let me try the cell phone.
Okay, we're live. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We are live again. Dynasty Mirror Search for Uhuru. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Again, please hit that like button as you guys come into the chat room. Once again, hit that like button, share the content, and also make sure you subscribe as well to the platform. Join the Search for Uhuru family. We greatly appreciate it. Also, make sure you go to dynastymirror.com. While you're there, grab your Midday shirts. For my Sierra Leonean family, you got to go to dynastymirror.com and grab your Midday shirts. Also, grab your books as well while you are there. April 21st to the 30th, we are going to Sierra Leone. Come and join us. If you want to roll with us in Sierra Leone, go to dynastymirror.com, send me a message. And then Patreon, become a monthly Patreon. Patreon.com, search for Uhuru. Again, patreon.com, search for Uhuru. Become a monthly Patreon. And when you become a Patreon, you will receive a postcard. You'll receive a postcard. So again, patreon.com, search for Uhuru. Patreon.com, search for Uhuru. Somebody, I'm reading some of these comments already in the chat room. We'll address that, I guess. But let me introduce our special guest, Brother Amanuel Biedemariam.
You said it right. You said it good. You said it good. You said it good.
Okay, thank you. And today's topic, we want to package, because from what I've observed, and from the past conversations I've had, Ethiopia is very complex. So we're gonna unpackage the I guess the conflict that's going on in the country, and then also how Eritrea, the role they play in that, if any role at all. Because from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brother Amanuel, they are kind of on the verge of having a civil war as well in Eritrea. Am I right about that? Or
I think the headline that you put on is kind of not accurate.
Okay, well, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Unpackage it. Go ahead.
Ethiopia. Hi, everybody. First, thank you for having me. Dynasty Amir. I have been following him for a long time. He travels all over Africa in ways that I've never seen anybody does. Even Africans don't travel the way he does. And he's been to villages everywhere around Africa, just reaching out to the people, really understanding the history of Africa in ways nobody's ever done, especially from, the Black community in the United States. And he has penetrated Africa. He has been educating people for a long time. I am doing this because I wanted to let the Eritrean, Ethiopian, and African communities that there are people like you out there just reaching out to Africa and doing incredible to bring our peoples together and just to bring awareness to see things in ways nobody's ever done. So kudos for that, and I just want to put that in there to make sure that people understand how I am here and to unpack the current situation in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is not in the verge of a civil war. Actually, Ethiopia is getting out from the verge of a civil war, an imminent civil war. So this is really a cleansing process for a nation that has been going on, that has been going through a tough 30-year, or you can even go 50, 60 years of civil, unsettled, some unrest, but the country was really going into a pretty bad situation. But now it is at the end of it, because the element that was in the roots of all the problems is being weeded out very strategically, and it is really in the end of its life. So Ethiopia is in a much better position. Eritrea is not involved in this affair, but the involvement of Eritrea over the decades in Ethiopia and the regional affairs cannot be overlooked. So that's basically how I can start, just to make sure that people understand Ethiopia is not on the verge of civil war. Ethiopia is getting out from the verge of a civil war, taking control of the country in a much strategic way, and it is really nearing the end of it, and we can talk about it later.
Okay, yeah, because from the headlines, from what I read, again, media, and we're starting to notice this, especially with this election, how media is completely biased. They've been saying, and at times, not at times, just the majority of times can also exaggerate as well for clicks and views. They were saying that there's a civil war that might break out in Ethiopia. I guess one of the regions. Okay, Emmanuel, you can explain it. I mean, that's what you're here for. So, what's going on? What's going on?
What's going on? I think, for the sake of really having a clear understanding for the youth, in order for them to really grasp what's going on, this goes back, the genesis to this conflict, to what's going on today. I wouldn't call it conflict. To what's going on today dates back in the early 1800s. Even further back. It is part of Africa's colonial legacy, Africa's colonial past. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of moving parts, but I'll try to summarize it so people have a picture, an idea of what went on and what's going on today. So in order to do that, I'm going to go back to the colonial legacy of the region, which is 1800s, when the colonial powers, mainly the French and the British, were competing for regional dominance, for colonies in our region, not in the rest of Africa, in our region. Around the 1800s, when Napoleon got defeated, the French controlled Egypt. And in 1820, when the French were weak, the British took over Egypt and colonized Egypt from 1820 on, along with the Ottoman Empire. At that time, the French, when they regained a little bit of their mojo, tried to come into the area. They were also controlling Sudan, not only Egypt, but Sudan. Right. Egypt and Sudan is vast territory along the Red Sea and also the Suez Canal. And so the French wanted to come into the region, into the Horn of Africa, which is Somalia, Ethiopia, at that time Abyssinia. This is in the mid 1800s, 1820, in competition with each other. And when the British saw that the French were penetrating Somalia, Abyssinia, they wanted to counter that, but they didn't have any way to do it. So when the Italians showed interest in coming into the region, which is in the mid 1800s, the British empowered French. The British empowered Italy to take over, to control of parts of the region. And at that time, Eritrea became a colony of Italy. But the Italians had an ambition to get deep into Abyssinia and control over the region. So this was the first time that the Italians wanted to.
And man, if I could ask a question, sorry to cut you off. Now, when you say Abyssinia, you mean Ethiopia or no?
The current day Ethiopia was called Abyssinia at that time. Up until 1935, it was called Abyssinia.
Got you. Okay.
So that's the right. Anyway, the Italians wanted to control Abyssinia, and the British allowed them to do that. And the French had penetrated Ethiopia, established relationships with Menelik. And the reason why Haile Selassie spoke French was because of the French. And they controlled Somalia, Somaliland, Djibouti, and all those different areas. And so when the Italians tried to penetrate Ethiopia in 1896, the Ethiopians defeated Italy in the Battle of Adwa. This is in 1896. So this is the current state of Tigray, the region of Tigray. this is how the Italians wanted to penetrate into Ethiopia, to the mainland Ethiopia through Eritrea. They colonized Eritrea, but through Eritrea they wanted to get into Abyssinia, to the mainland Ethiopia, Shoa region, and they were badly repulsed. They were humiliated by Ethiopians. So that's a source of pride for the Ethiopian people, and it's celebrated annually. The Battle of Adwa is something that Ethiopians celebrate gloriously, rightfully, and that was what was happening in the competition between the French and the British colonies. But as World War I came near, they started to juxtapose when the Germans start threatening France and England. The Germans, the British and the French start coming together, and they wanted to bring Italy along onto their side. So what they did is they basically start making concessions, allowed Ethiopia to take control of not only Eritrea, but they gave them Somalia. Somalia became a protectorate or colony of Italy. They gave them Libya. They made all kinds of concessions. So Italy becomes on the side of the British and the French.
Was this World War I or World War II? Because
this is World War I.
Okay.
This is World War I. And then around, the Italians were really getting comfortable in the region. And they also gave Italy a green light to re-invade Abyssinia again. And so Ethiopia was to be colonized. The current day Ethiopia was to be colonized by Italy.
Right.
So while that's going on in the mid-1920s and 1930s, when Mussolini came to power, his sentiment was more towards the German and Japanese alliances. So he started siding more towards, the German and Japan. And in World War II, Italy, before World War II, in 1935, Italy attacked Abyssinia and really captured Ethiopia and controlled Ethiopia in 1935, which pushed Haile Selassie out of Ethiopia into an exile. This was in 1935.
Okay.
By when World War II came in, 1941, the British and the French were working together, fighting against the Italians, the Germans, in every war arena in World War II. And with the United States was drawn into the war because the British asked the United States to come in 1941, 1942. Right. So this is coinciding at the end of the British Empire, at the end of the colonial era of Africa, the European colonial era of Africa, when the Europeans were really in bad shape. British was really battered by the Germans in World War II. Do you remember? The French were completely decimated, defeated. The United States turned it around. And so that was the case. So they didn't have a power. So the United States came, supported them. The first theater of war that the Allied forces won was in the region, in Eritrea. And then when they defeated Eritrea in 1941, the British forces went into Ethiopia and defeated the Italian forces and kicked them out of Ethiopia in 1941, 1942. So Haile Selassie returned from exile at that time. So the current state of Ethiopia is being formulated at that time.
Emmanuel, one second, sorry to cut you off. So you said 1935 is when Abyssinia turned into Ethiopia. Was it 1935 you said?
1935 is when the Italians took over Ethiopia for about 5 years until 1941, when British and Allied forces kicked them out. The first theater of war that the World War II was in that region. Okay. And so when they took them out, I don't know how the name Ethiopia transitioned from Abyssinia, but it transitioned that period. And I don't want to focus too much on that. Okay. I have aspects of that history, but I don't want to be sidetracked in that.
Okay, no problem. Go ahead.
So the Italians were kicked out. Haile Selassie came back. Ethiopia was really in bad shape. They didn't have anything, so they were totally dependent, the United States, the allied forces, to really replenish the country, militarily, economically, in every way possible. And at that time, for the first time, the United States was interested on the region. They were interested ahead of that, but that was the time that they wanted to come into Africa. As you know, the United States did not have colonies in Africa,
right,
like the Europeans did. But this was an opportunity for the United States to come into Africa. And the way they planned to do that was to bring Eritrea and Ethiopia together.
mm-hmm.
Ethiopia wanted access to sea, bring Ethiopia and Eritrea together under a federation process that they created, use the United Nations, which was the League of Nations, and then the United Nations. And then they managed to create a federation process that really denied Eritrea when most, all African countries that were colonized received their independence, got their independence from their colonizers. Eritrea was denied because the United States wanted to have Eritrea and Ethiopia come together for strategic reasons, for political reasons, for dominance, and also to have access into Africa. There were 4 key points why the United States wanted to come into Eritrea and Ethiopia. First of all, you can find this in a CIA document. By the way, you can find it in my book, The History of the Usa and Eritrea.
Show your book. Show your book. And we'll talk about that later. But yeah.
It's written in detail. It goes. All the documentations are there. All the transcript. This released under the Freedom of Information Act are there. So, where are we? The federation process was created to legally bring Eritrea and Ethiopia together. So when most African countries, all African countries, received their independence, Eritreans were denied the right to self-determination, to independence. This was a process that took place from 1942 until 1952. In 1952, the United States managed, in September 11, 1952, the United States managed to create the federation process that united Eritrea and Ethiopia, that brought Eritrea and Ethiopia. And the federation was supposed to be for 10 years. In that 10 years, they were to see if that relationship is going to work. But what it was is a legal way for the United States to come into Eritrea. The United States wanted to come into Eritrea for 4 reasons. Number one, because Eritrea is on the Red Sea. The United States was positioned at that time, I'm sure you know, the Strait of Hormuz, which is by Iran,
right.
The Suez Canal, which is in Egypt, and the Bab el-Mandeb. These are the 3 choke points which Eritrea was very closely linked to. And this is a vast territory with oil resources and a lot of other resources that the United States wanted to control. And also Eritrea is extremely strategic because it's in a very high elevation, and the United States wanted to bring a satellite station, intelligence base in Asmara, Eritrea, and they did. And that was from where they listened to the Soviet Union, and a lot of the intelligence, NORAD, CIA, and all the intelligence apparatus of the United States was in Eritrea because of that. The third reason was the United States did not want to be seen as a colonizer. They did not want to come in and just take over Eritrea. So what they did was they came through an African country and used the African country, Ethiopia, to position themselves in Africa and in Eritrea. The third reason was they wanted to thwart off the influence of the Soviet Union. And the fourth is to have presence in Africa. Ethiopia became the center of Africa, the Organization of African Union. The United States had access to that. So it was a complete package, and Eritrea did not have a voice in the United Nations, so it ended up becoming a part of Ethiopia. So because of that subjugation, in 1961, the people of Eritrea rose up and started armed struggle. So this is what was going on. Ethiopia was established. The United States managed to establish Ethiopia in a very nice way, politically, economically, militarily. The Ethiopian government had 45,000 soldiers, navy, and everything, established by the United States, helped by Israel, United Kingdom, and all that. And what happened in Ethiopia at that time was the monarchy, Haile Selassie. Haile Selassie was a feudal system, a monarchy. And there were so many different ethnic groups in Ethiopia that were marginalized because Ethiopia was ruled by landlords, in a vast country, and that were really oppressive. Slave trade was going on in parts of Ethiopia. It was just very backward, and this was creating resentment between within ethnic and ethnic nationalities throughout Ethiopia. So from 1962 until 1974-75, there was this tension in Ethiopia that was brewing, and a lot of the ethnic groups were beginning to rise up. In 1974-75, the military regime influenced by the Soviet Union came and took over. 1961, Eritrea started the movement for independence. The Eritrean struggle for independence was in full swing. The Eritrean revolutionary fighters were in control of vast Eritrean territory in 1974-75, except for the city of Asmara. And when the communist regime of Ethiopia came, the oppressed regions of the country were rising up, especially the part of Ethiopia which is the Tigray region that is today in problem. So this is basically, without going too much into detail, they were oppressed. They had, after the Battle of Adwa, after 1935, the Haile Selassie regime, the monarchy, completely overlooked the people of Tigray. They were really marginalized in ways that are so bad, and they wanted to get out of it. But within them, there were elements that wanted to become independent, aspired to do what the Eritrean people have done, so to create their own niche, their own, leadership that is Tigray. They called it Greater Tigray. So in 1975 to 76, they started their struggle. So that's where their struggle comes in.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions here?
Well, guys, hit that like button again. Please hit the like button as you guys come to the chat room. Please hit the like button. So what's going on right now?
Right now, the group that I'm talking about that wanted to become independent, in 1991, when Eritrea became independent, there was nobody in Ethiopia to take control over the government. All the the opposition groups were decimated by the military junta, the communist regime. So the TPLF, the current, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, that picked up this struggle in 1975-76, was helped by the Eritrean fighters, and they were helped into Ethiopia. 1990, when they were getting close to really cleaning up Ethiopia and getting rid of the Mengistu regime, there was nobody to replace the regime. And in 1991, when Eritrea became independent, Ethiopia was really vacated. If somebody didn't take over the country, would have destabilized. So the United States, Eritrea, worked along, and with the U.S. government, and gave power to the TPLF regime that came in 1991. That from 1991 until 2018, the TPLF regime, that is in Tigray, fighting that the government of Ethiopia is trying to clean up, was running the country. They were rigging elections. They broke the country into segments. They created a constitution based on ethnic groups. they and what they did, and they put a clause in the article in the Constitution, Article 39, which gives the nations and nationalities the right to self-determination up to secession. They empowered them with flags. They basically gave them green lights to become independent. So Ethiopia was being fractured. In the meantime, in order to accomplish that, to create the independent Tigray, they really looted the country, Ethiopia. I'm talking about all the aid money, all the factories.
Sorry to cut you off. So you pronounce it Tigray?
Tigray, Tigray.
Tigray is part of Eritrea or no?
No, Tigray is a part of Ethiopia.
Okay. But you can't. But it's separate. But it's part of Ethiopia, but it's separate.
No, like I was saying, when the 1991, when this group came, they broke Ethiopia to regions based on ethnicities. Okay. So they became the dominant region. They took land from the previous different provinces, from Begemder, which is Gondar. They took land from Afar. They took land from Wollo, and they also took land from Eritrea. And they wanted to expand that into the Red Sea so they can craft their own country. But it is within Ethiopia. It is Ethiopia. They don't have any basis for independence. They don't have anything. So what they wanted to create an independent state for themselves. But they wanted to do it at the expense of Eritrea. They wanted to do it at the expense of Ethiopia. They wanted to really destabilize Ethiopia so there wouldn't be a central government to contend against them. So that was the case. And so they were really creating all the ethnic violence, all the problems that were taking place in Ethiopia. That's what the government of Ethiopia has been saying openly. All the ethnic clashes, they were funded by them. There's a different element to that, which is the Nile, the competition, the geopolitical, juxtaposition is in that place, and they are supported by Egypt. They wanted.
Oh, okay, I was going to ask that because I was going to ask if this has anything to do with the dam.
It has everything to do with the dam, and so the military of Ethiopia wanted to make sure that when they were in power, they were taking all the military armaments out of Ethiopia. They were taking it into the Tigray region. Actually, after they started the operation, they found this missiles that has a range of about 1,000 kilometers, that have about 200, they could drop 200-pound bombs, and they could shoot 8 missiles at the same time. And the Ethiopian government used guided missiles and just destroyed all their armaments just to make sure that they're not going to be a threat. So this was a really serious situation. So the way you framed it, now it is in a much better situation, because if you have a map, I can show you how well the government of Ethiopia was able to contain what happened in Tigray in very short time. In 7 days, they are almost under complete control now. So it is incredible. If you have a map of Ethiopia and the map of Tigray region, I can show you exactly, pinpoint exactly how.
Real quick. Now, can you go into detail in regard to the conflict, or not conflict yet, but possible conflict that could arise over the dam? Are you there, Emmanuel?
Yes, I'm here. I'm listening. Oh, so you're asking. Okay, I thought you were making some adjustment. There were agreements that Ethiopia, Egypt, and Sudan agreed on. This is all colonial agreement that these countries have agreed, but it's old, and the Ethiopian government has been trying to get out of it for a long time, really asserting the right to the Nile waters. And Egypt, in the meantime, has been, as you know, Egypt, the population of Egypt is confined in the cities. 83% of the populations were really concentrated in, Alexandria, Cairo, those kinds of big cities. So now they have been trying to expand the cities, and they want to do that using Nile waters, and they've done quite an amazing job. And they've been using the Nile waters, and they want to do that without any kind of a problem. So maybe you could use a different map.
Okay, I see Tigray.
That's a portion of it. So
okay, let me see if I can find a better map. Okay.
But that's a good map. That's a good map. That's something similar. I think maybe the coloring was a little bit off.
Okay. Let me pull it back up. There we go.
Let me get some water.
Okay, no problem. Everybody, please hit that like button again. Please hit the like button. Also, make sure you go to dynastybeard.com. Again, go to dynastybeard.com. Shishay, thank you so much for the super chat. And guys, what we'll do in about 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes, we'll open up the line. So if you'd like to call in and ask a question, please do. Again, if you'd like to call in and ask a question, send me an email at uhuru@searchforhuru.com, uhuru@searchforhuru.com. And we have a super chat. Shishay says, what about the issues going on in Oromia?
We can come back to it, but it is part of the nation and nationalities groups that we talked about.
Okay.
And they are the largest ethnic group in Ethiopia, and they are going through the same issues. There are some elements of the Oromo population that want to become independent. They want independent Oromia. There are also elements that don't want. So majority of the country, Oromo is vast, and it's really broken map. It's really hard to piece together, and so it is extremely convoluted. But the elements that want to be independent are extremely vocal, and they are part of the vocal minority that you hear in the diaspora. They're extremely vocal about what's going on. Civil war is happening in Ethiopia. They're just amping up. Just exaggerating what's going on, what's taking place. I mean, what's taking place in Tigray is heavy. The people of Tigray are being decimated in ways, that is going to impact them for generations, because they grew up thinking that Tigray is independent and Tigray is the superior, and now they are really being checked and just being put into place in ways that they probably did not anticipate. And it's happening in very, very fast, and so it's going to really, the people of Ethiopia need to really embrace the people of Tigray in a way that's going to empower them instead of really kill them. So I think if you focus on what's going on in Tigray, if you see the western part of Tigray, which is on Sudan side,
mm-hmm.
that used to be a part of Gondar, Begemder. So half of it is now liberated. The government of Ethiopia has taken over that. When you see that triangle right there, right here, on the border.
Right here?
Yeah. That portion of it is where the Eritrea-Ethiopian border conflict was started. And, the TPLF, Tigray People's Liberation Front, took over that land, and they did not want to leave. They want to use that as a crutch to, subjugate the government of Eritrea, just regime change, and put in place a puppet regime that they can control. So that's what they wanted to do. So they had that control. The land that you see right here in Wollo area right here, on the bottom south green aspect, which is Raya, that kind of stuff with the yellow by Afar, that was also a land that they have taken over. And they have taken land from Afar, they've taken land from Eritrea, a lot of land, very fertile land. And now, what the government of Ethiopia is doing is just basically dismantling the TPLF. That was the root of all the ethnic problems in Ethiopia. They had the money, they had the power, they had the influence. When they were in power, I think it's very critical to go back again, talk about the U.S. role in this. In 1991, when the United States, when the TPLF came to power, the United States just defeated the Soviet Union. It was the end of the Cold War. And so as part of the U.S.-Africa agenda, they had 4 anchor states in Africa: Nigeria, Sudan, not Sudan, I'm sorry, South Africa, Ethiopia, and Algeria. These are 4 anchor states that they wanted to work through. And because of that, the United States was basically allowing the TPLF to do anything in Ethiopia and against Eritrea with impunity. And that's what empowered them. That's the reason why they made all the money when they were doing the elections. They were just claiming to have 100% of the elections. They are 6% of the population in a country of 100 million people. They were just taking 100% of the votes, and that's what they were doing. They created a coalition called EPRDF, and it is the ethnic groups, the different ethnic groups. I'm everywhere. Ask me questions so I can tie up this.
Okay. So there's like I said, Ethiopia is very complex. So people are saying the Amharic people are being massacred. Is that, or Amaria?
They're saying that the Amhara people are
Amhara, right?
Yeah. Today there was some kind of an atrocity that happened. It just happened as I was coming to your show. But the land that I'm talking about was taken from the people of Amhara, the TPLF, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, who wanted to really create an independent state, was trying to put every region in the country, put them in a bad position. And also they wanted to destabilize the region, especially the region where the Nile River is. In the white section of the area of Sudan, South Sudan area, Benishangul Gumuz, that is where the Nile is. This is a lot of where a lot of the atrocities were happening. And, a lot of the atrocities were happening by people that were founded by the TPLF, Tigray People's Liberation Front. And so for Ethiopia, in order to contain all this atrocities, they really had to contain what's going on in Tigray. And so they really have, just taken them to task and, just went to war. Eritrea is not involved in this. But if Ethiopia is to be in a bad position, because the TPLF poses existential or could pose an existential threat based on what I was talking about, the missiles and everything else earlier, they had to make sure that the TPLF is contained. So the TPLF is going to be contained. Once the TPLF is contained, the people, there are about 20 or 30 people there that are running this whole charade. They are billionaires. They've been taking money from the coffers of the country for a long time. They've taken all the industries, brought them all into the Tigray region. They controlled, the banks, the military, all the aid that was coming, all the development aid that was coming. In the Benishangul area, the area that I was showing you close to the Nile, they took out an area the size of Belgium. They destroyed it so they can create a field, a rice field. This is really wilderness preserve that should have been preserved. And, so they can sell rice to Saudi Arabia and other places. And well, yeah, it's just incredible what was happening. So this is coming to an end right now. This is the cleansing process that's taking place.
Okay. Guys, if you'd like to call in and ask a question, again, if you'd like to call in and ask a question, email is uhuru@searchforahuru.com. Email is searchforahuru.com. Again, if you'd like to call in and ask a question, send me an email and you could come on and ask your question. See, I didn't think Ethiopia was this tribal, but it seems like it's very tribal. Or am I wrong?
Ethiopia is going through a transition. I mean, there's just a fast development, just a lot going on. And it's also very tribal. It's very old. And, a lot of it is, in a way, primitive, unreached, undeveloped. And, like some of the Benishangul area, this is a very nomadic, very kind of like in a different world. And that is being just connected right now because of all the different things that have, development and all that. It is very old. 85% of the country is really unreached.
Oh, wow. Let's see here. We had another super chat. Are light-skinned Ethiopians trying to eliminate the dark-skinned Ethiopians?
That is not true.
That's not true.
There is a fight for prominence. The Oromos wanted their own independence, partly, not all of them. The Somalis, the Ogadenis, fought for their own independence for a long time, but they're curved. They're part of Ethiopia. So you have those elements that want to become independent, but the country is intact at this point because you have a government that has been able to handle a lot of the different, especially the Oromos, a lot of the opposition groups that worked with the TPLF were put in check. There was a gentleman by the name of Jawar Mohammed that went from the United States, from Minnesota to Ethiopia, and was working with Egypt, working with the TPLF, Tigray People's Liberation Front, doing all kinds of things. The government, when the government put him in jail for a lot of different reasons, that's a show that the government was able to contain what was going on with the Oromo, because one of the advantages that the government had was because the Oromos were not as armed and as strong militarily like the TPLF was, the Tigray People's Liberation Front. The TPLF was the party that was dominating for 27, 28 years. So they didn't have that leverage the TPLF had, and now the TPLF is being disarmed in a very, very fast way.
Yeah. Another question: what are any possible solutions to stabilize Ethiopia and set it on the path to positive growth?
I think that's really an excellent question. I think that's exactly what's happening right now. The governments of Eritrea and Ethiopia signed peace. In 2018, both governments for the first time went in and did a peace deal. They signed a peace deal and agreement in Asmara, and then they went and signed in front of the international community in Saudi Arabia, and they are in a path of really growth. And, the region is extremely rich in resources, and it has incredible potential to empower Africa, to do a lot of good things in Africa. And the only thing that was remaining from the Cold War, the only thing that was remaining in the path was the TPLF. It was extremely well armed. It has taken a tremendous amount of arms from the country. It was well funded, and the worst part of it is they had connection with the international community. They knew how the international community works. They knew how the NATO worked. They knew how to manipulate the Organization of African Unity and the REX, which is the Regional Economic Communities in Africa. They knew how to work the international banking system. Actually, the head of the WHO, Dr. Tedros Adhanom, is part of the TPLF, and he was caught lobbying for the TPLF the last few days. Basically, this is working for a non-political entity, the United Nations. He's the top of the World Health Organization. He came because he was pushed as an African, and none of the others with qualified personnel were able to compete against him because African countries lobbied for him. This is how entrenched the TPLF was around the world. They knew they had diplomatic connections with everybody around the world. They had reaches like there's none. So that is being untangled right now. That's being taken out. This is what they're losing piece by piece. The last couple of days, the government of Ethiopia was able to take into custody billionaires that have taken money from the people of Ethiopia. There was a guy by the name Muller Realtor or Real Estate. He had billions and billions of dollars of.
Now, quick question: is Mo Ibrahim Ethiopian? Are you familiar with him?
No, I don't think so. I think he's a billionaire in somewhere in Africa. I'm not really sure. I don't think he is in Ethiopia.
He's not Ethiopian? Okay. All right. Go ahead.
So, yeah, I mean, they had incredible amount of influence, and so they are working their influence. And they also are the surrogates for a lot of other countries, because the Nile is where Ethiopia is where the Nile starts. And, Egypt wants to make sure that there's not going to be a strong government in Ethiopia. Because of that, they always wanted to try to destabilize, to weaken the government of Ethiopia in some ways. And the TPLF was a vehicle in which they can do that, through which they could do that. And making sure that the TPLF is taken out really ensures stability in Ethiopia and security in Ethiopia, and helps Ethiopia look forward to use, because the power, the electricity that they can get from the Nile, Ethiopia, can be distributed, to Sudan, throughout Ethiopia. It could, they're slated, I think, 60 to 80% electric power throughout Ethiopia. So it's going to be massive. The discount that that the government of Ethiopia can get out of it, because they don't have to spend money for power. So the hydroelectric power for Ethiopia is incredible. So there's just a lot of advantages. And also, a lot of people may not be aware, but Israel is involved in it as well, because they could be the recipients of the Nile River. So that is an element. But I think the government of Ethiopia is somehow allaying their concerns in very, very unique ways, and just putting everybody at ease. I don't think the Egyptians would be, but the Israelis could be put at ease. They could be, they're partners with the Ethiopian government. They have. That's the reason why Trump came out and said, we're going to be able to bomb. I don't know why Egypt did not bomb the Nile. I don't know if you heard that.
Right. Yeah. Well, the comments Trump made. Yeah.
Yeah, and that has a different component to it. But China is one of the reasons why he probably said that. But that's it shows the involvement of the international community is very intense. It's deeper, and
let's read the super chat. Egypt is against development of any kind in the Horn of Africa. As we speak, both North and South Sudan is under heavy flood from Niles. Ethiopia should divert the entire Blue Nile into the dam this year.
That's a comment, but
All right, Black Beauty, go ahead.
Hey, how are you?
Excellent.
Good afternoon. I'm here in New York City. I practice real estate, and I work with a company that my broker, he's Jewish. He's Persian Jewish. And what I will say is this. They always tell me to say I'm Ethiopian Jewish. I wanted you to speak on that. I wanted you to speak on the migration that's happening between Ethiopia and Israel. Like, there's a direct set of Black people that are going into white Israel. So I would like to know more about that.
It's really a complicated issue. It started out in 1991 when Mengistu Biedemariam was going out of power. The then government made an agreement to send a lot of the Falashas, the Jews, home. And I think there is a new agreement that pertains to that. I think 2,000 new Jewish Ethiopians are going to go to Israel. I don't know the details of it to talk about it, but it is happening. And I think it's part of the relationship between Ethiopia and Israel. So
okay,
that's the extent of the knowledge that I have on that subject.
How does the benefit? How does the Nile actually benefit Israel? Like, in what way? Commerce or like, how does it benefit them?
I think a lot of the intelligence that came out, there's agreements that were signed by Sadat and Israel, in the aftermath of the 1969 war. And so, they are supposed to get a share of the Nile through the Red Sea. And that's where the whole thing is. So a strong Ethiopia that is going to be able to really stand on its own, that could challenge everything that they do, could pose a problem for them. So that was the calculus. But I think what they have to come to grips with, is we have to be able to use the Red Sea, the Nile, collectively, all of us, in order to be able to to prosper in a secured way.
Yeah, I mean, they can't think that they're. I mean, I have a very good friend that I grew up with who's Pali. They can't think that they're going to bypass Palestine and get access before them. I'm just saying, like, geographically.
It is when it comes to Palestine, it's extremely problematic situation. It's very difficult to talk about because it's. But it is not part of the calculus. It's not part of the Horn of Africa, the Red Sea, the Nile calculus. The Red Sea and the Nile happen to be in one of the most important areas of the world. And that is, now we have the Belt and Road Initiative of China, just going through. China has created a railway system that cuts through Europe.
Yes, I've heard about this. And then
cuts through Europe and ends up in Spain in the Mediterranean Sea, and then comes back through Greece. And they have established ports in Greece and Italy, and it's supposed to go through the Mediterranean Sea, through the Red Sea, through the Bab el-Mandeb, which is Djibouti, and then go into the Indian Ocean, and then cut directly to China through that. And so it is important. So from the Red Sea and the Saudis, all the different countries in the region could actually penetrate into Africa in ways that are really incredible, to Central Africa, to Uganda, Rwanda, South Sudan, through the Red Sea. So this is an extremely strategic place, a very, very important place, and they want it. And the Chinese have been there, and that's one of the reasons why the United States is very interested in that. During the Clinton, Obama, Bush years, the U.S. has lost tremendous grounds to China, so they're trying to regain it. The relationship that you see with Sudan right now is a reflection of that. They just got them out of the countries in the list of terror. They took out the sanctions and all that kind of stuff. So it's really a very interesting dynamic that is taking place in the region. A lot of people don't know the intricacies because it's just so complicated.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, bye.
Bye-bye. I got one more caller. All right, Brian, go ahead.
Hey, how you doing, Mr. Amir?
Good. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. And Mr. Emmanuel, that's how you pronounce your name?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me talk to Dallas real quick. Although I disagree with you most of the time and your opinions, and I think I battled with you a few times on Facebook, Brian Gibson, actually.
Okay.
But I respect your opinions. I respect it.
Thank you.
Mr. Amir, I've been in our region multiple different times, both Egypt, what is now Sudan or Northern Sudan, and Ethiopia. And, I was just wondering, and I always encounter this with a lot of Ethiopians, both in Sudan, also in Egypt, but the Oromo situation, because a lot of Oromo people tell me that they feel they're not part of Ethiopia and they want to set up their own type of country. I mean, what is your opinions about that?
I think we touched upon that earlier, and that is, there are elements in the, especially the Oromos abroad are extremely vocal about it.
Right,
and,
very vocal.
They're very vocal about it, and they have been, working hard, but they didn't establish the kind of position that enables them to become independent, even though the TPLF put in place a mechanism to where every region in Ethiopia can become independent with the Article 39. They were subservient during the TPLF regime for 27 years. They worked under it, and the TPLF was successful in Tigray People's Liberation Front, was successful in really disarming the Oromos and just controlling the region. But eventually, when the people were fed up, they were the reason. Cairo was the reason why they were pushed out. So there is a huge number. Oromo is huge in Ethiopia, but there are factions. The Oromo is vast. There's difference between the Oromo population of Ethiopia. There are different types of Oromos, different religious backgrounds of Oromos, different ethnic backgrounds of Oromos. So to lump it up into one element is probably a stretch, but it is it is something that the government of Ethiopia must contend with, find a way to answer, to deal with that. But as far as right now is concerned, the government of Ethiopia has been able to manage, control the Oromo elements that could
Right.
actually threaten its existence.
Right, because they almost represent almost more than 50% of the population in regards to ethnic groups in Ethiopia, correct?
They are the largest population, correct?
Now, one other question I have to ask you. Since Sudan went through the revolution, as far as ousting Omar Bashir, I know that the relationship in regards to Egypt and the Nile water, it has been kind of hazy between Ethiopia and Egypt. But with the Sudanese position, sometimes they're for Egypt, sometimes they're for Ethiopia. And with the current regime in Sudan, particularly, I think it's ruled by both military council and civilian government. What is their position in regards to the Nile River? Because I know Bashir was pretty much for Ethiopian side, but I noticed that the new regime in Sudan is kind of like wishy-washy when it comes down to that.
Your observation is on the money. The Bashir was one thing that you have to know in 1980s. The Bin Laden family was in Sudan.
Right, they were, yeah.
And when the Bin Laden was kicked out, he was being kept by Bashir. So there's a group called GEM. It's the Islamic movement. I'm trying to figure out what the GEM stands for, but they are the Islamic movement of Sudan that really controlled, along with the.
Oh, you're talking about Agenda Week?
No, they're not Janjaweed.
Okay, that's from the west, yeah.
The National Islamic Front or something like that. They were the ones.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it was a political group.
They were the ones that were controlling the region, and
right.
They were the ones that were trying to create, havoc. Just bring the radical Islamic fundamental movement into that region, and the government of Eritrea, alongside that, actually. The United States was a part of it during the Clinton era. We managed to get them out of there. And, as you said, Bashir vacillated for a long period. He was more interested on his own power than Sudan. And, just every time they put pressure on him, he capitulated. He did all kinds of things. When, Clinton bombed him,
right, I remember that. Yeah, back in '96, you're talking about, right?
Kind of. They pushed and they pushed. Eventually, they managed to get him to accept the independence of South Sudan, and that was a part of what was going on there. That goes into a very, very complicated U.S. agenda that the U.S. pursued for a long time, and it was just I have written about it. I'm going to release a book about it. And it's actually very fascinating.
I'm kind of glad. From that point of view, as far as South Sudan getting their independence, I'm kind of glad that they did get it for multiple different reasons. I feel that the British should have never put those two groups together. It would have, they just had totally different mindsets as far as culturally speaking, if you know what I mean.
Well, when John Garang, when he
he supported unity.
He was looking for the new Sudan that he called, and that's what he wanted, and he was eliminated because of that. So there are elements of South Sudan, so you can't really just blindly say they should be independent or not. They wanted to be independent. There was also elements that wanted to be a part of Sudan. So, but the way it happened was probably not very savory. It was not very good. It led into the kind of bloodshed. Millions of people have died in South Sudan because of that.
The civil war there, yeah.
Yeah, because of the civil war. If it was handled differently, that may not have happened.
Right, that's true. Well, the question I had, Oh, yeah, to answer Dinah's question about Muhammad Ibrahim, he's actually Sudanese.
You Sudanese?
Nubian,
Okay.
actually.
Okay.
Yeah, he's Nubian.
Okay.
Yeah.
You seem to know a lot about the region.
Well, I worked there for a minute, for a company, and I've been there for some years. Yeah, that's how I know about the region, pretty much.
Well, thanks for your questions and information.
All right, thank you. You have a wonderful day.
All right, Brian. Appreciate you coming on, bro.
All right, no problem. Take care, Don.
All right, let's see. We have one more caller, and then then what we'll do, Amanda, we'll let you go ahead and get into your book. Just get this last caller on. To Niger, I sent you the link. We are waiting on you. To Niger, we are waiting for you. If you want to, Amanda, you go ahead and discuss. We can go ahead and start discussing your book until To Niger calls in.
Well, my book is The History of the USA and Eritrea. It is actually a very, very interesting book, I thought, because I wrote it. It is. I started writing about the Eritrean community abroad and trying to figure out what the genesis, how it came about. I came to the United States in the mid 80s and 1980s, in the early 80s, actually. I'm sorry. And then, I was granted asylum during the Reagan era. And I was trying to figure out why we had to go through all that. And when I came to the United States, the war broke out between the TPLF, Tigray People's Liberation Front, and Eritrea, which the United States stood against Eritrea at that time from 1998 until 2018. And the Eritrean community abroad has gone through a tremendous amount of pressures and through the experience. And I wanted to write about it. And as I was writing, and I wanted to say, this is how the U.S. history in Eritrea started, and I started writing it, and I just did an introductory aspect of it, and then I look at it. It became 36 pages, and I look at it. It just, this is a core. That's the reason why the Eritrean communities were actually pushed out, and so I wanted to find out why the United States came to Eritrea, and all the reasons that I outlined earlier in terms of why the United States wants to come to Africa was, just came at that time. So, the more I got into it, the more information I got, the more information I put together, just the more fascinating it became. And so it became a book on its own. But the book is about, the Eritrean community abroad, our experiences as part of the African diaspora experience. And I think, so I would like to get that out soon. So after I wrote it and I look back and tried to review it, I said, this has to be the first book that comes out of it. And so I focused on this, and it was kind of like to test the waters, to write a book and to go through the experience of writing a book. And it just basically chronicles the history of Eritrea in the United States from 1942, 1941, when the United States got into Eritrea, and all the intricacies in between, and how it came about, why the United States came, and then eventually, why it left and the legacies that it left. So this is what the book is all about, and how it impacted the Eritrean community all over the world in Eritrea, how it impacted the region, how it impacted the U.S. political standing in Africa and around the world. And it's a history in a way that's never been put together the way I have put it together. So hopefully, I'm hoping that people will use this to, as a basis to do more research of the region, of a lot of the different subject matters that could be discussed out of it. So that's the history of the USA and Eritrea. A lot of the documents that are in there, the pictures that are in there, are released because of the Freedom of Information Act, because of the dates have been expired. So we have a lot of secret documents that were unveiled as a result. So I highly recommend that you read it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and let's read it. Oh, how can people buy the book? Where can they go buy it?
They could, they can get it in Amazon. They can also get it in Lulu Publishing, LU Publishing. They'll be able to get it there. And, they can also go to my website, useritrea.com. useritrea.com. I actually have a lot of documents in there, and useritrea.com. A lot of the documents that were archived, and we're going to populate the website with a lot more documents so we can use that as a research, mechanism or tool or whatever.
Okay. Tonight, let's see here. Let me read the super chat, then I'll bring Tonight on. Eritrea and Ethiopia have similar cultures, or do you feel this was caused by the West?
The West played an important role in really fragmenting Africa. The West played a role in the Africa that we have. So, as in the rest of Africa, of course, the West had something to say, but the situation is a fait accompli. It is a done deal. It is the way the game was set up. The colonial boundaries were set up, and that's how Africa is established until, I don't foresee anything changing that. But it is not particular to the people of Eritrea and Ethiopia. Eritrea is vast, contrary to the way that is portrayed, that there are similarities between Eritrea and Ethiopia. Eritrea has 9 ethnic groups, and the region, the northern region of Eritrea, which is the Kabasa region, speaks the languages and the traditions that are similar to Ethiopia, but the lowland part of Eritrea is completely opposite. The climate, the way people live, it is really very, very unique. And the same thing with Ethiopia, as you were just talking about Ethiopia, whether it is the same you're talking about, is it the same with throughout Ethiopia? It's not. The Oromos are different. The Sidamas, the southern people, are different. The Kambelas and Nuers are completely different. They're more like the South Sudanese. And so there's just a vast array of ethnic population throughout Ethiopia that is completely, it doesn't resemble anything like the Central Shoa part of Ethiopia. So,
all right, let's see here. Go ahead, Tunaja.
All right, thanks for having me. There are a lot of concerning things that I've heard from your guest today, and some of them slightly on him, because he made a statement just now saying something about it's a fait accompli. If you say it's a fait accompli, then that is the end of us. We cannot accept a fait accompli in the state, the way things are in that eastern region. And I really urge you to start seeing things slightly differently, because we have to start taking control of our own homeland. What kind of madness is this? You also made a comment about that from the Middle East, people can cut straight through into Africa, into Central Africa. This is the problem. East Africa is supposed to be a bulwark that is supposed to be protecting the continent. This is something that has happened for thousands of years. Sudan prevented Rome from getting through. In the Senegal, the same thing. The southern part of Africa always comes to the aid of those areas whenever there is threat coming from the north. And right now, we are asleep, and for an expert like you to be coming to say it's a fait accompli, we have a serious problem. We have a serious problem. If we don't know that this is our greatest weakness, when we start dividing ourselves, we should know that there is always a reason to divide, but far better reason to get united. Where are our leaders that tells people that, hello, we are facing an existential threat, that we have to start pooling resources together? Where are the young men that are being trained to be on a military footing? Because that eastern region, that is how they've been in history. They've been very, very strong. Rome had to sign peace deal with Sudan. When they were defeating England, Rome, Germany, all those places, Rome was defeating all the other these nations, including Turkey, all of them. They had to sign a peace deal with Kush because they were strong. What has happened to us? That we sit there and we just say it's a fait accompli. These people are not invisible. They are human beings. We should be able to start thinking as if we want to take control of our destiny. What is happening in Ethiopia today is a total disgrace. To believe that our own people are fighting themselves when we know these things that are being orchestrated from outside. Ethiopia is trying to build a dam that gives it strategic advantage and gives it ability to take control of its energy supply. And then we start getting all this nonsense start happening. And I heard the Ethiopian government accuse the Egyptian government of sending mercenaries into their country. How can they be able to exploit people? Because I've heard the Ethiopian prime minister, I've heard that it's quite charismatic and it was quite popular. So they need to go beyond just saying we are trying to build a dam. They need to start rallying their own people, letting them know that this is a existential, that we are facing annihilation. Different nations are building military bases all over the Horn of Africa. It's crazy. And the people there, they seem to have lost their mind a long time ago, and they haven't woken up. Maybe the change that is going to come in that region, it has to come from the belly of Africa and from the West somehow. Because what is going on there is complete anarchy right now. You know, Yemen, what's the name? Somalia, Ethiopia. Ethiopia has had peace and they are doing very well for themselves economically. Eritrea, they've had peace for a while until this dispute started. Egypt is an African nation that has forgotten that they are African. North African nations have seen things, have heard things that even North African nations have forgotten that they are Africans. We have to start seeing ourselves as Africans. If we don't start doing that, we are all done for. Because these people are moving in, you know it yourself, in the Horn of Africa, they've moved in everywhere and they've compromised our people all over the place, and they are using our greatest weakness, which is division. We have to start resisting that divisive instincts. If we have, one of the things we can do is set aside tribal disputes for 20 years. We can have our tribal disputes after 20 years, after we've reclaimed our destiny. We don't have time for all this tribal stuff. Tigray here, Oromo there, who cares? We are all done for.
Where are you from, Where are you from? Where are you from?
Nigeria. Okay. You see the name?
Tunisia. Cool. Thank you for your comments. I mean, you know, if there's anything that I agree with you, is that we have to have a sense of unity, a sense of coming together, and but we have to be pragmatic about it. We can't just say, you know, just because I said fait accompli and makes it, you know, complete. It doesn't mean that's what I believe in. And you just for Africans to come together, they have to be strong. In other words, every nation has to have its own strength, be strong, self-reliant, and then they can come together based on the terms that they agree on, and then on and forth, and then eventually. But when they are totally dependent, when they don't have the powers, when they don't have the resources, when they don't have the ability, when they don't have the institutions to manage themselves, to really kind of wish, you know, unity. Africa one is simply a dream, and so you know, we have to be very pragmatic in how we think about Africa. You know, you talked about a lot of different things, but I think that's the only thing that I could agree with you. That's the only thing that, you know, I could take from everything that you said. And so, yeah, Africa has to unite based on pragmatic understanding, based on self-reliance, based on, you know, just and an attitude of mutual respect, respecting sovereignty, and then you can come kind of similar in the way that the European Union is doing in a much better way. This is a moment for Africa in so many ways. Africa is, you know, discovering itself for the first time since, you know, World War II. And, you know, after World War II, when you talk about Patrice Lumumba, you know, in 1960s, when he got killed, you know, he aspired to do some of the things that you are talking about, but he was not able to do that because he was killed. They didn't want anybody, any nationalists that, you know, want to become self-reliant, to do things, for himself. And so, because they saw it as a threat, they killed him. And, it was a CIA operation, and it is a disclosed information right now. And, during the Cold War, the whole continent of Africa was a pawn to the Soviet Union and the United States, and they were not able and in a position to manage themselves in a way that they could. They didn't have the institutions, they didn't have the power, they didn't have the resources. They couldn't get out their resources. The leaders at that time were basically being manipulated by one party or the other. So now that the Soviet Union is down, now that China has been in Africa and really kind of played a very destructive role, we have an opportunity to reestablish ourselves. And the first thing that comes is not by becoming emotional, by really putting down anybody, but by really understanding, respecting, first of all, sovereignty. Secondly, the way of thinking. Secondly, we have to make sure, that these countries are independent. They can independently operate without the influence of their former colonizers. They have independent thinking. They have their own independent military. They have their own trading capacity and all that kind of stuff. So what you say is all good and, but it's so far, we're not at that stage. So I'll leave it there.
Okay, I get what you're saying. And to be fair, I acknowledge that I may have come on a little bit strong. Is because what I see there, because what I see there is a little bit hot for me to just absorb like that. It's really, really painful to see, because, okay, like with the African Free Trade Area, if that goes on successfully, and let's say in when things goes very well with it, then we start getting what they call free movement, and we start moving around in the continent. That could erase the need for most of these nations fighting for nationhood, because there will be no point then. You're already a nation because you exist. Your people exist. So the land belongs to you. Nobody's taking your land away. So this drive for nationhood, people forget that you can found a nation today, then the next day there's another reason to divide. Or families fight each other. We have to realize that, when does it stop? This is a game they have been playing with us, using division to carry on weakening us. The narrative, we have to start learning to change the way we think about these things, and thinking now that at this time of all times, we have to start thinking from the point of view that whatever happens, if we work together, it's always better. Founding your own nation is not going to solve your problem. South Sudan broke up from Northern Sudan. The next thing, they were in civil war. What is the point of breaking from one another? You already exist. You're already a nation. Your people, your language exists. Nobody's wiping it out. So forget about that. If you want to do that, maybe start that after 20 years. Let's sort ourselves out, because I actually believe there is a window right now. There is a window right now for Africans to reclaim their destiny, because with what is the flux that is going on in the world, with the Chinese and the Americans trying to reposition themselves, trying to battle for the soul of the world right now, this is a good opportunity for us to break away from their influence, because this is how it happened for India when the Soviet Union was competing with the US. This is how it happened for China when that is happening. When two elephants are fighting, that is an opportunity for the weaker guys to get a chance to strengthen themselves. And Africa right now is in a position where we can use that as an advantage. You said something about China playing a very destructive role in Africa. Please, can you explain what you mean by that?
Destructive, an industry, when the internet comes, it plays a destructive role to a lot of industries. So when I say destructive, it's not in a negative sense. Destructive is, after 1991, the United States kind of went back to its old ways, that it was doing during the Cold War. So they created anchor states. Nigeria was one of them. By the way, to learn a little more about this, Bill Clinton was in Africa in 2000, right before the end of his presidency. And so listen to what he said at that time. Just complete transcript of his statement. Read that, and it just tells you, it will explain to you everything that I'm saying right now. And that is, they basically wanted to have 4 anchor states in Africa, and they created regional economic communities that they could control. They wanted to have Africa the extension of the United States, for lack of a better term. So the RECs, the regional economic communities, which I'm sure you know, like ECOWAS, that Nigeria leads,
Right.
Sensa and all that different IGAD and all these different organizations, they were really supported and just by the United States. They wanted the United States wanted to run the trade, economic activities, and diplomatic activities through these RECs. They want all the small countries in Africa to go through the RECs, the regional economic communities. And what happened is when after 2000, the Chinese aggressively started having bilateral relations with all these different African countries. Because of that, it just basically undid the U.S. policy. So that was a distractive China role that I'm talking about. So China basically undid U.S. foreign policy in Africa by just going there, building dams, building roadways from Kenya to Uganda, just railways everywhere, and all kinds of facilities that kind of brings it close to the Silkway, the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative, and so that is a distractive role that China played.
Oh, distractive role, not destructive. Did you say destructive or destructive?
Distraction and you could parse between the words, but it just kind of ended U.S. foreign policy in a way that they did not anticipate. Now that's the reason why the United States is trying to compete in Africa, in the region, in Sudan, and the Trump administration was actually doing a good job, just creating bilateral relations rather than going through the RECs, and so that's kind of like what I'm talking about.
So, what do you think about the US's influence in Africa? Do you think it has been largely positive?
I think we have to look forward. I think we have to move forward. I think we are in a good place. The history of the USA. I think you can look at you can read my book, and I think it will give you a glimpse of what the United States did after World War II. And it was in competition with with the Soviet Union. It was an era, just right after World War II. It was an era when Africans didn't have any kind of institutions established. They were coming out of the colonial era, but now this is a new era for Africa. This is a new time for Africa. Time to actually look back at the history, learn from it, and move on. And so, there is no European Western nation in that played a positive role in Africa. One way or the other, they played a very negative role up until now. So it's not particular to the United States. And, you've seen what they've done in Libya, Nigeria, all the oil corruption that went on for years. Sierra Leone, Ivory Coast, you go on, Liberia, all these different countries from country to country. It had its influences, most of it negative. But I think we have an opportunity now.
Okay, I think someone was asking this question. I think that is a very valid question about what is happening in Nigeria too. The same applies everywhere. If division, there's always a reason to be divided, but there's far better reasons to be united, especially at times like this. Do you agree with that?
Unity really doesn't mean anything to me based on on how you characterizing it.
Okay, Africa, what I mean by that is
Africans are united in heart. Africans are united in purpose. Africans are united in wishing that we are all together, that we should band and work together for the development, for the future of our countries and people. Africans are united in the fact that we need to really come together in ways that are unique, that is not going to be bullied by Westerners. And, Africans are united in the fact that we have to think about, how to use our resources in a positive way. But to make that a land issue, an issue about, just ethnicity and all that, and specific kind of takes away from the essence of what Africa should fight about from this point on.
Okay, you see, I agree with that point 100%. So how do we manifest it? If, let's say, there is this conflict in Tigray, or the kind of stuff I'm hearing in Mozambique, which is horrendous, what I'm hearing from Mozambique, how does it manifest itself? Where are the people that will say, enough, you can't do this? We are going forward. This is how these things are meant to manifest itself, to say we are united in spirit, and when the whole people are ripping each other apart, that is not effective.
Well, everything has a backlash. A lot of what we are seeing, I was trying to explain earlier, the history is vast, and I was not able to condense it in the way that I wanted to about the TPLF and how it came about. But the TPLF is a rogue element. The Tigray People's Liberation Front is a rogue element. And you're saying that how should it be handled? It's being handled in the way it should be handled. And once that's done, we have an opportunity in the region to really have an incredible role in international economy, incredible role in African economy, incredible role in the Red Sea and the Nile, just to create development, to become a powerhouse. And that's one of the things that they don't like, actually. They don't like to see, like Eritrea and Ethiopia coming together, becoming a strong entity, a power, using their strength to support each other, to come together. So a lot of what you're saying is what we are aspiring to do. What we are, I think what you're frustrated about is listening to some of the annoying, disheartening backlash killings that you see on television. But I think overall now we are really going through a very, very good cleansing process that is going to be good for the region, especially for the Horn of Africa, for Eritrea, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Somalia, and Djibouti to a certain extent. And, this is a vast area that is extremely rich with a lot of resources. And if stability and peace starts, and then we'll be able to do a lot of things. And then that's one of the things that I like about the current leadership of Ethiopia. They're thinking about in those terms. And so, I think I'm very optimistic. I am not as disheartened as you are. This is something that we have to go through, and I'm looking forward to it. I think you should respect what the people are going through. I'm not going to disparage anything that happens in Nigeria for whatever reason, and I'm not going to do that anywhere in Africa. I'm just going to focus on what's going on in Eritrea, make sure that Eritrea becomes a stable, strong, prosperous, economically viable, democratic country that the world could look up to. Same thing for Ethiopia, same thing for the rest of Africa. And so let's not be emotional, be pragmatic, understand our history from a very unbiased aspect of it, and then, just start working to develop the right way.
I hope you didn't get from what I said that I was kind of disparaging your country. I am just...
No, I didn't. I'm talking about overall, that's not how we should be as people.
Yeah, I'm just lamenting watching our own people, being played for the same things that our forefathers fell for. This division is what that has led us to where we are today, and we are facing basically extermination. And we can look at it and think maybe, according to some Jamaicans, say fire their blood, they think it's a cool breeze. Some people might not know what is coming, but the strategic positioning of some of these powers in Africa right now, they are about to fight for Africa right now, because there's a competition coming along down the line. And I feel that if our people don't wake up, we are going to live to experience some of the things, and maybe even worse than our forefathers experienced. And That's why it hurts me when I see Ethiopian fighting Ethiopian, because I know that Ethiopian leader is a great leader from what I've heard, and he's quite popular. So he speaks up. He does speak up. But what is going on in Tigray right now? We need to find a way to start stopping these things. Like you said, we all united in wanting the best for Africa. We need to start putting some form of these thing ideas, or some way of forcing these things down, so that anybody that goes after a fellow African, we frown on it and stop them dead in their tracks. If you raise your hand against another African in the next 20 years, we stop it, because our focus is to build. We can't let anything else distract us. There are complexities, I know. There are all the games that have been played, espionage and counter-intelligence and all that. It's happened and we've suffered a lot. But we have to start leveraging our strengths too. We have a very, very strong diaspora, and a very, very strong one in one of the strongest nations in the world. I've seen nations that have had very little do far more with less. Not to mention African continent with all its resources and 1 billion people. Or if we take North Africa into account, 1.2 billion. We should be able to leverage our way out of this instead of squabbling over stuff. Ethiopia shouldn't even be having this quarrel with Egypt. It's because of mindsets. Mindsets have turned so badly that we are having squabbles amongst ourselves. Egypt is part of the AU, for crying out loud. So we need to start figuring our way out, letting our brothers in the north know that, okay, yeah, not all of them see themselves as Africans, but it's mindset. I've seen some of them discourage their family members from marrying Africans. They want them to marry white people. They do that because they think that is the way to be now. That mindset needs to start changing. We need to start bringing African Union into becoming African Union. It's not the EU. It's not the Arab Middle East League and all the rest. African Union is African Union. So that is all I'm saying here. And I don't mean to sound like I'm, trying to lash out against the Ethiopians and all the rest of it. That is not what I'm about. I just don't like seeing our people being butchered constantly like this and we are doing it.
Yes, sir.
End.
To Nigel, we appreciate you. We appreciate you coming on, brother.
Sir. Thank you, sir.
All right, bye-bye. All right, Emmanuel, we'll go ahead and close out. Anything else you'd like to share in closing?
I am very optimistic as to what's happening in the region and the Horn of Africa. I think we have two. We are lucky. We have two leaders that have played. The government of Eritrea and the people of the government of Ethiopia are really keen and interested into, establishing a region that's going to be very powerful in so many ways. And the people of Eritrea have struggled for a long time to make that happen. This is kind of like the beginning of a new era, Horn of Africa, the beginning of Ethiopia. And I think it's going to spell the beginning of South Sudan. It's going to spell the beginning of Sudan to a certain extent. And I hope whether the U.S. administration is going to play a constructive role in fostering that. And I also would like to say for African Americans to really pay attention to what's going on in a very detailed, understanding way, what's going on in Africa, so they can play a role, because there are incredible opportunities in the region, because you have potash in Eritrea that is going to last for years. The same thing in Ethiopia, oil reserves. The Nile, the waters are the most important resources. We are in the Red Sea, which is one of the center of trade of the world throughout history. We are in one of the most important waterways of the world, of the Red Sea and the Strait of Hormuz. The Suez Canal and the Bab el-Mandeb. It's going to be a center of trade. In order for that to happen, we need peace and stability, and all those elements that really get in the way of that have to be handled. And I'm glad we are seeing that's being taken care of against the Tigray People's Liberation Front that have been a menace for decades, and we are seeing the end of it. And I'm grateful. And I just like for all Africans, Eritreans, Ethiopians, Somalis, Sudanese, South Sudanese, all Africans to come together to really focus on developing education, healthcare, just self-reliance, economic development, and just supporting each other, partnering with each other, looking at ways to develop in ways that really can bring us into the next century. So that's what I aspire to do. And please read the history of the USA and Eritrea. It's extremely important for you to support this. The reason why it's important is Africans don't write books. Africans don't write their own history. Everything that was written by Westerners. And that's one thing that I uncovered as I wrote this book. And so please read the history of the USA and Eritrea. You go to my website, the US Eritrea, and there is a lot of information there as well. And you can come to my Facebook, Twitter pages as well. So I thank you for having me to explain my point of view and share it with your viewers. And thank you, everybody.
No problem. No problem. Everyone, thank you so much for joining. Make sure you go to the website, purchase your copy of the book. Until next time, family, Dynasty Mirror, search for Huru. Peace.
Peace.